Hello and welcome back to Sage's Tabletop Table Talks. I'm Sage, this is my tabletop, and I'm going to talk to you about tabletop role-playing games. Now, if you've clicked on this video, I'm going to assume you've already seen the icon and title and all that stuff, so no sense in even playing coy about what I'm about to review today. So I'm going to review... It's outside of Dungeons & Dragons 3rd Edition, might be the game that me and my friends played more than any other game. And we desperately wanted this game to be fun, and that is the 1st edition of Scion. So Scion is a tabletop role-playing game made by White Wolf and their storyteller system. And that's honestly a huge crux of the problem I have with the game is the fact that it was made in Storyteller. And I know Lord of Darkness, VTM, Vampire the Masquerade, and Werewolf the Apocalypse and all that jazz. It's a huge following. I don't care for that particular setting. I like the Exalted setting, and I am going to kind of get in more into this stuff when I talk about my favorite settings in games. But Scion might just be my favorite setting in all these games. So the idea of Scion is, it is at its core a superhero game. Some people might not agree. It is a superhero game. You play the role of a group of, a band as they call it, because every White Wolf game has to have its own little kitschy name for the groups of players. This is a band of Scions. And no, you're not playing guitars, and although you could actually, I guess. I mean, there's gods like Apollo. But you are the children of gods from legend, the Norse and Greek, all these gods, and you're half mortal. And you run around stopping bad guys, killing monsters known as the Titan Spawn, and, you know, other evil scions, things like that. And, I mean, that's ultimately the premise of the game. And the world is so cool to me, because it's like, I like superhero games, but a major problem many of them have is you get these points where there are so many origin stories for supers that it gets ridiculous. You know, Iron Man has a pizza-colored murder suit that he built in a cave with scraps. You know, Steve Rogers was given, you know, magic super steroids during World War II. And the Hulk got a little bit too close to some gamma radiation and turned into a big green rage monster. And Doctor Strange is just a fucking wizard. He's just a fucking Dungeons and Dragons wizard dropped into the reality. And Scarlet Witch can't decide what her origin story is. Is she psychic? Is she an actual witch? Is she a mutant? Who knows? We can't figure out what we're doing with this character, and haven't for about 30 years now. But anyway, in games like Scion, everyone comes from the same power source, which is they are partly divine. They are half god. And some people might want to like be like, oh, well, I want to be just a regular human. But I mean, that's not really what. It's one of the reasons I think X-Men is strongest when they get away from the Marvel universe as a whole. Like, okay, everyone in this world, their superpower comes from a weird extra genome that sits on the end of their DNA strand. Sure, why not? But I said in Scion, everyone is half god, and you go around, you fight monsters known as Titan Spawn, and there's this like thing, this veil, this shimmer that make it so regular people don't see the supernatural, you know. An ogre might just look like an ugly dude walking down the street, a particularly large ugly dude walking down the street, and you know, most people don't notice it, but as a Scion, you do. And you know that he's a Titan Spawn. And I mean, yeah, that's the premise of the game. However, the game has a lot of issues. I have had this discussion with people about a huge issue I have with the game, and that is the dice pool. I just don't like games with dice pools. They always feel so slow to me. Like, so my brother played a character. I won't get into who he was yet because there's something very interesting to talk about in the game. But he played an archer. And so he would, every time he attacked, he would fire his bow. And his bow, I think, had like maybe 5 accuracy to it. So he'd have 5 10-sided dice. And he had 5 dexterity. So he had 10 10-sided dice. Plus, he had plus 5 ranks in the archery skill. So he's got 15 10-sided dice he's rolling. And he had an ability that... So one of the things the game works is, there's this wheel of like 8 ticks. And when you do things, you move down this battle wheel. And it's one of the things my friend said that she really likes about the game is this battle wheel, which I'll get into in here in a little bit. So one thing that he could do was take 3 ticks down, basically delay his initiative by 3 moments, and each time he did, he got to add 1 10-sided die to this die pool. That's something anyone can do. They take what's called an aim action. So, 15, 16, 17, 18 dice in his dice pool now. But he had an ability that doubled the efficacy of his aim action. So 18, 19, 20, 21 6-sided dice. And he had another trick or two he used to boost that even further. Because at one point he was rolling, I think, almost 30. And it was not the Greek ability Arete. Because he wasn't Greek. Which would have been even more insane. But let's just say this guy had 21, just say right now, 21 10-sided... I'm sorry. I've got a chest cold. It's my chronic bronchitis, but it's particularly bad right now. He had 21 10-sided dice. So now he rolls 21 dice. So now he's got to do this. Okay? Miss, 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 hit, 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 double hit, hit. With 21 dice, he's got to separate them out and then count how many he has. He has to count how many he has that roll. That's how this edition of Storyteller works. This uses 2nd edition, I believe, Storyteller. Is when you have an ability you use, you collect this pool of dice, 21 in this case, and you roll them all. They're all 10-sided die. They're all D10s. And if it's a 7, 8, or 9, it's considered a success. So you count how many 7, 8s, or 9s you have. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If they roll zeros, that's 2 successes. So every 10 you roll, you count twice. So now he's got this pool. Okay, so I've got, let's say he's got, in this 21, he's got 12 successes. He's got a pool of 12 successes. So he goes, okay, I rolled 12 successes. And I go, okay, well, the opponent's dodge... Now, that's just the to-hit roll. So it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay, so that's how long it took to do that one attack. That's just to determine if it hits. Now he gets to determine damage. So he's got 12 successes. I say, okay, well, the enemy's dodge is 9. So he beats that by 3. So he takes 3 dice. So now he got 3 10-sided dice. And now he looks at the damage he does with his bow from... Okay, well, he's got 4 strength. So he puts 4 dice into this dice pool. Okay, his bow naturally does 3 damage. 3 dice into this dice pool. And he's got this new dice pool. He rolls again and determines how much damage he deals. And it takes forever to get any combat done in this game because of that reason. And I know people are like, well, when you get into because there's 3 tiers: hero, demigod, god, and it's based on characters have what's called a legend. And it's effectively your level because it determines how high your abilities can go. Um, and 1, 2, 3, 4 legend is considered a hero. 5, 6, 7, 8 demigod. 9, 10, 11, 12 is a god. However it works. Don't exactly remember all the breakpoints, but that's effectively it. And characters get what are called epic stats. Oh, let's talk about the stats. So there are 9 stats. There are 3 physical, 3 mental, 3 social stats. Physical being strength, stamina, and the best stat, dexterity. Dexterity is a fucking god stat. It's just overwhelmingly powerful compared to the other stats. 3 mental stats are intelligence, perception, and wits. And then your 3 social stats are charisma, manipulation, because those need to be separated, and of course, appearance. Scion does kind of describe it better than a lot of games do. It's less how actively hot you are and more just how well you're able to use your physical appearance. And part of your appearance is you can have a high appearance stat and be ugly, because there's beauty and ugly abilities in the game, and it depends on if your character wants to be beautiful or ugly, or certain abilities kind of let you swap back and forth. You can be ugly 1 minute and beautiful the next. And that will there's a funny story behind that one too, but I will get into that. So first of all, manipulation, appearance, and charisma, the 3 of them have so much overlap that there's no sense in there being 3 stats. They probably should have filed that into more like preternatural and just let your character have like charisma, willpower, although willpower is a different thing. Maybe like determination, and then, I don't know, something else. And honestly, almost all these social stats are, so many of them are so identical that there's just a lot of overlap, and they're just very boring. And I kind of know why they separate social, because despite it being a supers game, they think it wants to be like this game of intrigue and social. Then it's not. The world doesn't really benefit that the way it does Vampire the Masquerade, because Vampire the Masquerade is all about the vampire clans and their bullshit, boring ass interpersonal politics and all that stupid shit. And it's why I don't like Vampire the Masquerade, because Vampire the Masquerade games tend to just be like people sitting around measuring how big their dicks are, and I just don't give a fuck. I have the smallest dick. I mean, largest. I have the largest dick. We all already know that. Anyway, but yeah, Scion is a much more action-y game, just by its world. So anyway, one of the appearance enacts allows you to, it's called like Grim Visage, and my friend Mike did this thing where he was playing a Scion of Easy Nami, the one of the Japanese death goddesses. So he kind of had like this god appearance. Basically, as he got more and more powerful, he looked more and more like a walking corpse. But he did this thing where he literally ripped his own face off, which he could do because he was like incredibly durable. And he used his ability, so this person they were basically interrogating and torturing, he ripped his face off, so he's just this meat face. And the Grim Visage makes it so that every face you see for a period of time looks like the individual's face your face. So for like 3 months, everybody's face looked like it was this ripped off meat, disgusting, gory face. And it might be one of the most fucked up, horrible things any of us have ever done in any campaign we have, including the one where the DM tried to run an evil campaign for us. So, yeah. Shout out to you for being the most fucked up person out there. But, yeah, it was just an interesting story. So there, in the core rules, you can see on the back, they have these little symbols. There are 6 pantheons you can pick from. They have set up, which is Egypt, Greece, Norway, Aztec, Japan, Voodoo. And there was not necessarily the best research done outside of Greece. And it's one of the things that my brother wanted us to mention was how there was a clear favorite, which is Greek. So this book was written in... see if I can find the release date for it. But the book was written before really anime had taken over. Like, it was popular, but it wasn't like it is now in 2007. So it was getting... so, like... the Japanese gods are nice in it, but, like, the whole weeaboo thing hadn't really exploded like it is now in the year of our Lord 2024. Yeah, it'll probably be 2024 when this video is released. I'm recording it mid-December. But, but yeah, so, but the Japanese gods probably one of the better. But there's very clearly a hierarchy of powers in this game. So each individual pantheon has, well, every god has powers associated with them. Like, for example, the Aztec god Tezcatlipoca has associated with them epic appearance, epic charisma, epic dexterity, epic manipulation, epic wits, animal jaguar, darkness, Italy, and I'm sorry if I pronounced any of this wrong because I don't really speak the Aztec language. Magic, moon, mystery, prophecy, sun, war. So if you are a scion of that god, you get those powers cheaper. Sun and things like that. Some gods have way less smaller power pools than that. I picked a bad one to examine because the Aztec gods in this game are just embarrassing. But, like, a lot of these gods, like Baron Samedi has charisma, Sheva, which is the voodoo power pool, darkness, death, earth, health, psychopomp. And so every god has a specialty. And ranked, I could rank them almost perfectly, and maybe I'll just do a straight rank video. But the Greeks' gods are just so much more powerful than everyone else. They have an ability called Arete. And what Arete does is you pick a skill, and you get a massive die pool boost to said skill. So at 1 rank, you get 1 point. At 2 ranks, you get 2 extra dice. At 3 ranks, you get 4 extra dice. 4 ranks, you get 8 extra dice. And that is a huge problem with this game in general. Each stat, you can get epic points in that stat, and they give you auto successes. But whereas each point adds a die to your die pool, the epic points, and I wonder if my character sheet's still in the back. Yeah, so those dots are your base points. That's how many dice you get when you roll an ability, your strength. And then the squares, you power them and you buy epic attributes. You get auto successes. So your base stats grow linearly. 1 die, 2 die, 3 dice, 4 dice. Your epic stats grow exponentially. 1 auto success, 2 auto successes, 4 auto successes. So by the time you're god level, you have a pool of like 200 some automatic successes, and you're rolling a die pool of like 35 dice, and it almost feels like you don't need those dice, but you also kind of do. That you also kind of do just, I don't know, it feels like you kind of do. So, and that's one of the things people have told me is these exponential bonuses. But honestly, I never played past a game that went past Legend like 5. Like, I might have ran one that went up to Legend 6, but we never really got that far because as the power goes up, the mechanics of the game just fall apart at the seams. They become more and more unfunctional. It becomes more and more unfunctional as a game as it goes up. And like I said, there's a lot, especially with the social stuff. There is so much overlap in abilities. Like a lot of the charisma ones are social ones are just this one makes people listen to you. This one makes more people listen to you. This one makes people believe you. This one makes people believe your lies. And I'm like, okay, but like it's ultimately uninteresting. And I haven't played a social character, so one of the characters I played was a social character. Like I said, as a game goes, the world was so fun. We tried so hard to square peg this circle hole, which sounds like a lot like my love life. I'd actually run a game in this in Mutants and Masterminds, and the game was fun, but it really kind of showcased one of the biggest advantages of Scion. And the thing I probably, outside the world, like most about Scion. And that is your powers. So, like, I had a character, he played a Scion of Horus, and he chose to heavily focus on the aspect of Sky. And so he had, like, flight and wind blast and resistance to hot and cold and things like that. And I had a character who was a Scion of a sun, and she had like a solar flare and arrows that fired like incredibly hot, powerful sun bullets, and a little bit of a healing ability. And like one of the things is like, and I'll kind of bring this up because it has one of my favorites with fire. Like, if you're going to make a fire character, let's say you want to make a hero, and you want to focus on a fire aspect, what are some powers you're going to get? Flight, fireballs, fire blast, probably some heat immunity, maybe, like, a fusing ability where you can, like, repair items with welding, and things like that. Like, maybe, like, heat vision, infravision, maybe, but in Scion, the fire abilities, I like how when they have the abilities, they got these cute little bug symbols, like a bee for fertility and a lightning bug for fire, firefly for fire. They have an ability called Fire's Eye. And the ability is, a Scion can see out of any fire that is already within his line of sight. Oh, it looks like he has to affect it with bolster. I don't like that. Never mind. But anyway, it's kind of a unique ability. So what it does is, so if you can see a fire, so let's say you're in a hallway and there's a torch on the wall, and you look at it, you can then see as though you're standing in that fire. So like you're in this hallway and you look fire, and you can kind of see around the corner now without anybody seeing you, because I mean that's such a unique fire ability. There's a sun ability that lets you create an EMP, because like if you were making a sun-based character, you wouldn't think about that. But yeah, no, solar flares create massive EMPs. And that's just kind of a cool ability. But anyway, they painted on specific powers, because I want to get back to that. Some, like I said, better than others. The Japanese one has weird ones, but it has a couple that are just so infinitely useful. When I was running the main campaign, the biggest one I had, my friend who was the Scion of Izanami, the Japanese Pantheon have an ability called, I don't remember what it's called, but it has to do with the idea that there are spirits in everything. Everything has a spirit inside of it. And one of the things he can do is talk to the spirits in it. So like he would just anytime they needed anything, he would just walk around and ask every object in the room. One of my favorite stories is they were trying to trail somebody, and they had known that he had met a contact. And my friends are like, well, obviously, people talk at bathroom sinks. So he's like, I wonder if a toilet overheard anything. So he awakens the spirit in this toilet, and the toilet's like, yes, I am toilet, feed me your poop. Because it's a toilet. Its role is to take excrement. So they were talking to this toilet about who overheard a conversation. And then it's like, yes, feed me your poop. And my friend's like, okay. And because, you always hear the stories of, like, D&D characters, like, when they poop. Like, it's all kind of a running joke about characters, like, when do D&D characters poop? And apparently they poop in toilets to ask them for it. That's just a weird moment. And just kind of a funny, just a kind of a funny story about kind of, like, how we'd play and, like, the kind of, like, unseriousness we took in the game. But, yeah, like I said, probably this game, I probably have the most stories, because, like I said, outside of Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, we probably played Scion 1st edition more than any other game. But, so the Japanese Pantheon has some they're probably second strongest Pantheon. Maybe the Voodoo one. Their ability, Cheval, allows them to, like, manipulate, not necessarily manipulate, but, like, they can, like, see through others' eyes, hear through others' ears. At some points, they can possess people. That's extremely useful, but some of them, like the Norse Pantheon, have the absolute worst ability. And it's part of what I talk about, where there's, like, no real consideration of the cultural elements, because their ability is called Jotunblund, or Giant's Blood. And what they can do is they can cut themselves and feed it to people or animals and give them very, very minor power, strength, and stamina boosts. And it's so weird because, like, the idea of sharing blood in, like, the whole Vikinger era is, like, a sacred thing. Like, to just share your blood with just any random schlub or, like, a dog or a cow is so out of character for, like, culturally what that means. Because, like, the idea of, like, the blood brother, you share blood with somebody, it's like that. To them, it means you are now literally blood relatives. You are blood family. You are, to them, as a biological brother. And, like, it just really reeks of half-assed research. Oh, the Norse, they have giant's blood, so... And in the game, the giants have an ability... Giants, because one of the major enemies are giants, because Norse frost giants, is they can feed their blood to humans and create, like, empowered thralls. And so it's like, oh yeah, the Norse gods can do it as well in a very shittier way, to, like I said, and, like, your gods who are, like, throwing lightning and, like, walking through fire, who cares if some random human has an additional point of strength? Like, it doesn't mean anything. One of the things in the game is you have power sources, so you can get, like, relics, which are, like, items that grant you superpowers. Like when I was talking about the bow and arrow that my brother Scion had, it was a relic. It was a superpowered bow that granted him superpowers. And he had played a Scion of Teslapoctica. Once again, I apologize to anyone watching this who is from, like, Mexico or Central America or anything like that, who have Aztec blood. I don't speak the language and the letters. As somebody who speaks pretty much exclusively English, and if we're being completely honest, barely that, those letter combinations are just confusing to me. So I'm doing my best. And it is entirely a me problem. It's not anything like a problem. I'm not trying to take a shot at the language. It's entirely me being a dumb white American. But he had, like, a microphone that, because he played, like, this radio jockey, a kind of, oh, what the heck's his name? But this was before podcasters, but he was effectively what would have been a podcaster. Rush Limbaugh. He played like a Rush Limbaugh type character, J. Jonah Jameson kind of character. So his microphone gave him like prophecy power. So like he would speak into the microphone. It's conspiracy theories, and because he had like prophetic powers and magic, fate manipulating powers, he could make these things real, these conspiracy theories true. And it's kind of a cool character thing. The problem is the way the game works, it didn't really matter. But so you have relics and you have like magical animals. Like you can have a dragon or a Kirin or, a Pegasus. So the Jun Blunt power doesn't work on magical creatures. So if you have a Fairness Wolf as a pet, you can't use your Jun Blunt on them. It only works on mundane animals. And you can also collect followers, like police officers and shit like that, but they're pretty much useless. There's something else you can get in the game. Oh, gods. You can get, like, sages to give you advice. But yeah, so like the Norse power is ridiculous. They released a second edition of Scion, and the powers are way better. The Greeks' power is based on transmutation, because every Greek story involves them either turning into an animal to seduce some lady, or turning someone else into an animal over some very minor slight. Because, Greek gods are totally not children with magic powers. And like I said, the Aztec pantheon, they're at a race for the bottom with the Norse pantheon, because their ability basically is they can cut themselves to restore their magic, called legend points, which fuels your magic. They can basically do damage to themselves to restore those, or kill people and sacrifice their hearts to restore them. And it's not a good ability, and especially unless you're playing... The Aztecs are just kind of evil, and it's not good. Yeah, like, you really can't play a good Aztec character. I guess you could, but it's extremely hard. And the second edition does a lot better research into it. I don't remember what the Aztec ability is. I don't even think the Aztecs are in the new one. I think it's Mayan gods that are in second edition. But anyway, the Norse gods is like rune reading, which is way, way more accurate to what the Norse mythology would be than giving your blood to dogs or donkeys or whatever. Like, which gods have I missed? Japanese awakened spirits. Greek are better at you than everything. Norse. Oh, the Egyptian gods are themed around life and death. So their ability Heku allows them to do things like see ghosts and calm spirits and know true names. And it's honestly a big problem is it's just kind of all over the place. It's hard to really thematically pick anything from it. But it is what it is. It's don't want to say terribly researched, but it's not a particularly interesting, or I don't want to say not particularly interesting. It's kind of all over the place. But that is also to the game's advantage, I think, because powers are all over the place. Like, the first three powers of fire in Scion are you're immune to fire damage. The second one is you can make fires burn without source. And the third one is that fire's eyes. And then you eventually get the ability to turn people into fire demons, to turn bullets into flaming bullets, things like that. Like I said, the weirdness of it is an advantage. Now, they released, after the first three books, the Scion, Hero, Demigod, and God, which I have, but I didn't want to dig them out because there isn't anything in it that's interesting enough to talk about. But then they released this Scion Companion, which completely fucked everything up. So in the game, like, you have powers, and those powers, like, let's say, for example, you want your epic strength powers. And then hero, you have all this list of epic strength powers. And then you would have the demigod level. That book had new powers, which are generally more powerful than the hero ones. Some of them required prerequisites, some of them don't. This game just released a whole bunch of new powers without any kind of thought about where they would stand in the hero, demigod, god tiers. Which now means that in order to use this book, and believe it or not, absolutely use this book because it's so fucking cool outside of this one thing. And now it means that effectively you have to let players take god powers that don't have prerequisites. Or you're going to try to figure out where these powers in this book lie in the god, demigod, hero tiers. Powers really should just have had a sorry. These powers really should have just had a legend rating, a required legend rating. Like I said, your legend rating is effectively your level. All intents and purposes, it determines your what power level you're capable of getting. So the abilities really should have had a legend rating assigned to them. But what this book does add is your Irish gods. So like the Lou and the Morrigan, which so cool. I love having Lou and access to Lou and Morrigan in the list. Their power is called Gies, and it's about fulfilling quests and duties and hospitality. You've got the Celestial Bureaucracy from China, and their power is based around the transmutation, like 5 elements, and the 8 I can't remember, the I Chang, that kind of stuff. So from this one you can play like the Monkey King and things like that. So between this, oddly enough, makes you a better anime protagonist than playing the Japanese gods. But between this and the Japanese gods, you can play in any kind of anime protagonist you want to play. The Deva from India. It's always kind of touchy when you use like this and the voodoo, religions that are still really, really actively worshipped. Like, I know there are dudes out there who like worship the Norse gods, and it's just very hard to do because much of what we know from Norse mythology has been adapted through Christianity, through Christian writing. So there's a lot of wonkiness involved there, and really the only true primary source we have outside of like little scratchings on walls here and there is the Rosetta. But like the voodoo and the Deva, the Hindi gods, are very, very, very actively worshipped today. So if you're going to include them, you absolutely would want to include. You want to respect them in a way that the Norse gods and Norse and Aztec gods in Hero weren't. So it's kind of tricky, but I don't think there was a problem with it. It didn't feel off or anything to me, but I'm also not Hindi. I'm also not, from India, so, my mileage doesn't mean a lot, but it's cool. And then they added 2. So this book introduces a scenario called The World at War. I don't like that scenario, mostly because the Japanese, Greek, and... So the idea is it's Scion, but during World War II. But the Japanese, Greek, and Norse gods align with the Axis powers, and I'm not really fond of that. Not super cool with the idea of them. Once again, for some reason, I don't know why, they seem to hate the Norse gods, because the Norse gods are specifically aligned with the Nazis. The Greek gods, because they're using the Roman variants, are heavily aligned with fascist Italy. which the explanation is because Caligula stamped Jupiter, signed everything Jupiter. He was able to eventually work his way up to supplanting Jupiter in their pantheon, and then the Japanese gods kind of just sided with the emperor because he was the emperor. But yeah, I'm not really not very fond of that element. But I am fond of America and Europe got themselves some new gods. And I really like that idea that modern myths and modern beliefs are creating new stories, new divinity. Because so that's America, the Yankee pantheon, who get their abilities aren't that great, and it's really not a super cool ability. It's not a super powerful ability at the end of the day, but it is one of the coolest abilities in the game. But yeah, the American Pantheon is based on industry, so it's all about tech. Like, one of the things you can do is, because the idea of gremlins sabotaging airplanes, which totally wasn't about these soldiers being overworked to the point they were too tired to actually, like, properly second guess their job. Obviously, they were little monsters, causing bolts to loosen. But, like, one of their abilities is they can send gremlins to an opponent, to enemies, to sabotage their attack, which is such a cool ability. They can work harder, they can work more hours and with more difficulty than sorry, I'm just kind of, but yeah, they can work more harder with more difficulty, things like that. And their capstone ability, their most powerful ability, is called the Project. Now, what is the Project? You summon a little silver ball that, upon so many ticks, it creates a giant flash and shockwave that deals aggravated damage to everyone in the area, and as they get further out, it deals less and less damage. Aggravated. So there's 3 damage types. Bashing damage, which is subdual. It's bumps and bruises and busted nose. Lethal, which is internal damage and deep cuts and, like, mortal wounds. And aggravated, which is damage to you as a core, as a person, it's almost spiritual damage. But yeah, aggravated damage. If you are maxed out on bashing damage, you are unconscious. If you're maxed out on lethal damage, you're dead. If you are maxed out on aggravated damage, you no longer... See, you have your little damage track down there. Health. So that if you take a damage there, you get no penalty, 1 penalty, 1... I've talked about this in the health tracker video. This death spiral, because every time you mark off one of these, you lose dice and the eye is incapacitated. So if you take bashing damage, you make a line, a diagonal line. Lethal damage is an X, and aggravated damage is like a star. But if you max out bashing damage and take more bashing damage, it floats over to becoming lethal. But yeah, you take aggravated damage, and you summon a nuclear bomb, is what it is. And that's a lot of fun. And then they call it the European Pantheon, which is England, Russia, France. Get Civitas, which is about unification. So they get abilities where they can, like, pool their ammo. So, like, if I've got a machine gun and my opponent has a bow and arrow, I can just take these bullets, convert them to arrows, and he just has them now. He just doesn't run out of... As long as somebody in the group has bullets, everybody has bullets. And they get, like, bonuses to, like, aid another checks, the distractions, and things like that. They get the ability to, like, gifted health, where they basically pool their hit point pool. So even if a character takes damage, it can float over to a character who hasn't taken damage yet. It's kind of cool. I don't remember what their capstone ability is, because it's not as interesting. Oh yeah, all for one. One for all and all for one. And that has nothing to do with My Hero Academia. Um, let's see here. Oh yeah, basically lets the players within a group use high stats for anything they want to use. Like, so you basically just whoever has the highest stat, everybody effectively has that stat for the rest of the scene, which is how the game kind of manages time. I don't like the scenario, but I love the idea that modern myths are creating new gods, and just kind of get into it because like I think that at the end of the day, like hearing these things, like you got when it comes to America, you've got like oh there, those are the bad guys. You've got like Betsy Ross has become like a symbol of like America. This like modest, very maternal woman who kind of created the symbol that is the United States. Columbiana is the embodiment of like American freedom, and she's represented with the Statue of Liberty. As somebody who's from Ohio, Johnny Appleseed's in here as this idea of like how industry can actually meet with nature. Going around planting these apple seeds all over to kind of like using a combination of industry and nature together. My favorite's Pesos Bill because the American myth is the cowboy. He's Pesos Bill. So like he's like the legends of him riding a tornado and I think he slapped a tornado. And basically survive rattlesnake, or use a rattlesnake as a bullwhip and hogtie a bear. Like Paul Bunyan's in here, things like that. And then the European pantheon isn't quite as well thought out. Britannia, John Bull, and Robin. That was my brother's Archer character was the Scion of Robin Hood. So I want to save that because to acknowledge like, oh yeah, no, they created these characters from our myths. And yes, I know Robin of Locksley was a real person, but he has very much been mythologized through stories. Same with Johnny Appleseed, really. And John Henry, who's one of the Americans, John Henry, who represents how just grit and willpower are as important as actual innovation. Then in the French, they have de Arton, Musketeer. They have Madame Guillotine, which is a symbol of like revolution and the overthrowing of the tyrannical elements, and Marianne, who's just like the spirit of the people. The Soviets get Baba Yaga, so they get John Wick on their side, who pretty much is why we won World War II, because I don't think Zeus or Odin could possibly stand up to John Wick. And the Citizen, who represents communism, and Rondamat, which represents Russia itself. One of the big things in the game is the enemies are the Titan spawns, because there are Titans in the game. The Titans represent kind of raw, primordial elements, and I'm very upset that America and Europe didn't get these, but, it is what it is. The Greeks have the world, Terra, which is the world itself. I'm not super fond of that. When I ran it, I just made it like a parallel kind of monstrous, bizarro world. The Greeks get I should have brought the Scion book down because not the Greeks, the Egyptians get light, and the monsters light uses are angels. And the Titan's main avatar is like a shiny white dude with a white beard. And it's like, oh, this, the Egyptians' main enemy is Christianity. And it's kind of both awkward and kind of cool, actually. And when somebody had asked the creators if that represents Christianity, and they were basically like, if you wanted to, certainly it was drawn from Christianity, but there's other things in it, like things from Egyptian mythology, like sun lions and things like that. The Norse have fire, which I would have gone with ice because frost giants, but they use fire giants instead. The Voodoo have water, the drowned road, representing the people who threw themselves off the boats in order to escape the transatlantic slave trade, which is kind of a cool antithesis, kind of a cool way to kind of incorporate more modern elements into the Voodoo pantheon. Trying to remember the other ones. Japan has darkness, and that's mostly just for the meta plot of the book. Aztec have wind. The what are they? The Irish gods have earth, which kind of is a lot, very much vibe of like decay and rot and things like that. The Chinese have chaos, and I believe the Devas have drought as their Titan. Yes, drought is their Titan. Vritra. Vritra? Once again, I don't speak Hindi, so I am sorry I fucked this shit up. But yeah, no, and honestly, it's kind of boring. Maybe there's something culturally I'm missing there, but it doesn't really come off as a super interesting Titan. But yeah, it is what it is, and the game, and I've almost been going an hour now, but I have a lot of praise for it, especially the way the world is built. There's some awkwardness, and honestly, at the end of the day, one of the major problems of the game, simply put, is the massive dice pool and how powers just grow exponentially. Like, the difference between 3 and 5 in an epic stat is game changing. It is just victory. If you've got a 5 and they've got a 3, then you just are going to win any of that encounters. It's actually worse than Exalted's epic defenses and perfect attacks and perfect defenses, because at least there's a little variance and trickery you can do. But in Scion, it really is just, if I have a epic 6 dexterity and you got an epic 4 dexterity, you just really can't do anything to me. And then the massive dice pools make any action go forever. And the Greek, I don't remember if arete is automatic successes or automatic or into your dice pool. Either way, if it's automatic successes, it's just so insanely powerful. And if it's in your dice pool, it's just more shit to bog your game. I'm pretty sure it's automatic successes, which is insane. I'd like to try the second edition of Scion. I have the first 2 books. I have Origins and Hero. And because there's some things they changed in it I like. Some things they changed in it I don't like. Like, they absolutely codified, like, relationships. Like, relationships is a mechanical change now. Like, oh, you do this and you roll this, and if you roll this, your relationship increases, and it takes away from the role playing, I think, a little bit. But you know, it is what it is. If you can find, like, especially you can find PDFs of these books for cheap, I suggest reading it, because there's a lot of cool ideas in here. And certainly, like, especially if you're playing a Heroes campaign, some of the powers in here. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the health ability. So they have a health purview with like a healing thing. And they have the most, like, one of the things is you can like assess health, where you can like use a scan spell. And one of the abilities is like healing damage. But they have one that makes it so you can touch a target. And then when you touch them, you can decide, okay, next time they're either impotent, they are infertile, or the next time they have sex, they are guaranteed to have a child. And it's such a fucking weird ability. Like, what game are you playing where you're just walking around being like, your dick don't work, your dick don't work, your dick don't work. Oh, next time you have sex, you're gonna have like triplets. And like, what fucking game is this? Like, why is this in here? It's so weird and out of left pocket, like. But at the same time, also, it is kind of showing like they're trying really hard to do more with these ideas than you would see in a game where it's like, okay, build any power set you want. And you end up just going to mimic, like I said, you're making a fire character, you're just going to make the Human Torch. Like, I'm not trying to be nasty or mean, because same with me. I would just make a character that's so similar to the Human Torch. I might have one weird power, but you're not going to have, like, fire eyes. You're not going to... If you're making a sun character, 90% of people aren't going to think to be able to use a solar flare to do that. Like, or to an EMP, because, like, that's just not something associated with sun powers. You're going to have, like, blinding abilities and, like, fire bolts and, like, maybe, like, a healing power, because the idea of life coming from the sun is a very... very common idea. But I wouldn't play the game. If you've played 2nd edition, I know a lot of people who watch these videos actually haven't played a whole lot of tabletop role-playing games, which is fine. I mean, that's kind of one of the things about this series, is I'm trying to, like, not only help people who are playing tabletop role-playing games improve. Like, that's kind of like the whole thing I do with, like, rules and settings and things like that. But things like this, these reviews, are a lot to kind of help people who haven't done a lot of playing, kind of giving them ideas of where to start. Because, once again, like, I get it is an expensive hobby. And Dungeons & Dragons is asking off the rip $200-some just for the basic rules. And that's not including the shitty fucking loot boxes they're trying to incorporate on their dumbass website now. So, like, give places for players to, like, start, to kind of, like, idea. If you are especially if you're into playing supers campaigns, I would absolutely suggest giving these books a read, because there's some really cool, unique ideas in here for your superhero character, for your plant, your fire, your sun, your moon-themed character, that you might not have thought of to put. I said this. I actually have all 5 of the core books here. I only got these 2 because they're the most interesting. Hero, Demigod, God, Companion. They released a book called Ragnarok, which is all about the Norse gods. They have a few new Norse gods and an illusion power and an ice power, which... The illusion power I like. The ice power I really don't. It just doesn't do a whole lot that water doesn't already do better. But it is what it is. But, and as always, like I said, I wouldn't play. I give 2nd edition a shot, maybe. And if anybody has, by all means, let me know how it plays out. And if you've played 1st edition, let me know how you liked it. Like I said, I didn't care for it, but obviously, a lot of people like White Wolf games, like the storyteller system. They want to be narrative, but as what I'll do with all these reviews, they want to be a narrativist game. Unfortunately, a lot of the mechanics in the game are so awkward and cumbersome that you end up spending a lot of time trying to wrestle with them, making this, at its core, a gamist game. And I would argue a narrativist game after that, because it really, really wants to push, like, one of the ideas of the game is called fate binding, where if you use your power in front of people, they can be bound to you. And which means that NPCs, that's the idea of, like, an NPC, like, as a heroic character, you keep running into these same NPCs. As Superman, Lois Lane continues to Laura Lang and Lex Luthor and all these people just keep popping up in your life. So it at its secondary, I would say it's narrativist, and then simulationist last. It wants to be this big kind of mystery world, and like I said, it doesn't think it's a superhero game, and it is a superhero game, which is why I would say that it's simulationist last, because it's not simulating what it wants to simulate, which is Vampire the Masquerade except gods. It is a Marvel DC type game, except instead of mutants, it's half-gods. But, yeah, like I said, I have a lot more praise. I wanted to re-review this because I thought my last review was just kind of me trying to be very, like, internet angry reviewer. And I've kind of evolved past that. And I've gained more knowledge about both gaming and narrativism and narrative writing and things like that. So I want to give this game a better fair shake than I gave in the last one. So like give it a nice re-review and be more fair to it than I was before, and just more knowledgeable about what the game is and isn't. But anyway, I've been going on about this game for an hour now, and you're probably bored. You're probably bored, and I want to go play video games. So I will see you guys next week on my reviews. I'm going back to a Monday schedule after this. I've been posting twice a week to help through the holidays. I might miss a couple weeks because we're coming up on Christmas and New Year, but after New Year's, I'm going to be back to a normal. I'm going to be uploading these videos every Monday. I might miss a Monday if I'm busy, but generally speaking, I'm going to be uploading these videos every Monday. So I will see you guys, maybe not next week, but here soon I will see you guys back my regular Monday schedule. But anyway, I will see you and have fun.